afternoon, good evening. This is Dawn Turner from SIG, and I'll be your moderator today. And I'm really excited to jump into today's content, but we have a little bit of background information to go through firsthand. So first, about SIG. We're networking and thought leadership type of organization. We have 2 global summits, one in the spring and one in the fall, and we're going to be adding a third one over in the UK next year. We have the North America and the APAC. We have the webinar series that you're on today. It's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And this month on Wednesdays, we have our Outsourced Talk webinar as well. We also have a monthly town hall teleconference, which is an open mic for buy-side people only. We have our peer-to-peer resource. This is where you can ask any question you have of your peers, and they will help solve your problems. We have a SIG Resource Center with over 5,000 tools, templates, presentations, research, white papers, anything you need to make sourcing a little bit easier for you. Also, career work, where you can post and find jobs or internships, student talent outreach program. And also, our conversations take place in social media. So make sure to connect with me personally, but also SIG, and you'll find all links on the left-hand side of this page. Our semi-annual event. Right now, 350, 375 people scheduled to join us in Carlsbad, California, just outside San Diego. We're going to start off on Monday. On Monday, we're going to have 2 incredible workshops in the morning. One actually brought to us by Abasan, who is our presenter today, and that's going to be the Global Digital Innovation Council. And the second one is our LATAM Alliance, where you can come together with folks to learn about Latin America and country capabilities, to have a great dialogue around LATAM. That Monday morning. Then at noon, we go over to the golf course, and we're going to have a super fun scramble-type tournament. Lunch and dinners, then we go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, into great thought leadership, really deep into the content. And the thing is you have to put your hand over your name tag. We are 100% non-commercial. We're going to have keynote sessions. You're going to recognize the brands that are there. They're the people you want to network with. And show at the summit are 70-30 from our buy side to our provider advisory side. So you're going to see a lot of folks that are just like you at the summit. So I hope you join us. Our upcoming still this year, we have London happening on November 9th. We have Copenhagen, Denmark, March 15th and 16th. We move to March 2nd of next year, and that's our GBS Roadmap Series. And then a really exciting Challenge the Future Awards program happening February 2nd and 3rd in London, England. So I sure hope you join us at one event. At University, we launched this on January 1st, an online certification program, and it do it as a private cohort. It can be self-paced, or we also have custom solutions. It's fantastic. We already put through over 300 students. I think last class just launched about 50. Build your professional network. And this is your father's sourcing. This is not what you would have learned 20 or 30 years ago. This is up-to-date, 2 days, best sourcing possibilities that you need to learn. And educate your staff. Great to do is give them the gift of education. I am so excited to have Abasan here. Abasan is a really strong partner of SIG, and they are right at the edge of the digital transformation world. They are experts. So with today is our presenter. Carlos is an accomplished strategy consultant executive who brings more than 20 years of professional experience in business transformation, outsourcing, governance. His engagements include international clients in Europe, Latin America, and the United States. So with that, I want to welcome you, Carlos. And then just before I hand it over to you, folks, we're going to keep this interactive. So on the lower right-hand corner of your screen, there's a Q&A box, a question mark. Click on it, open up, and if at any time you have a question, it can be about anything. It can be about what the content is, you want to go into deeper content, anything. Keep the conversation going. I just want to add, look at this picture. You're going to be at the summit. You want to find Carlos. If you head down and carry on the conversation even further. This information that will also be shared with you, so if you want to pick up a phone or if you want to email him after today's webinar, we're going to share that with you. Next window, just before 10 minutes before the hour, we did send out the slide deck. If it's behind your firewall, don't worry, because at the end of today's presentation, it'll be available to download directly to your hard drive. We offer these for 2 years, and they'll be on our website, so you can share the link that we'll send you and let other people in your organization watch and listen to the seminar that you're going to experience today. So with that housekeeping, I want to turn over to you, and thanks for joining us, Carlos.
I really appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Right. So, first of all, thanks everyone for attending the session, and a special thanks to the SIG for the opportunity. I think that when it comes down to talk about digital transformation and what's going on in the marketplace and the effects of the digital transformation and governance, I think that is a very interesting topic that I believe not very many organizations are talking about or beginning to do much about it. So we thought as part of this series, it would be important to share with you our perspectives in terms of governance transformation and what we want organizations and learn about it and be able to take some lessons from this to your own organization. So very quick, I want to share a couple of things. I spent a minute talking about who Sun is and what we do. We're a private management consulting firm. We are based in Los Angeles, California. We have offices around the world, and we focus essentially on 6 different things. We have 6 different horizontals, if you will, and multiple as well, focusing for our clients. So we have our business transformation practice is really essentially the executing strategies across organizations, including digital and business per se. We also have the digital strategy practice, which defines and executes all the business strategies associated with disruptive technologies and the effect that they have into the business. Additional strategic sourcing practice, which really essentially focuses on developing the sourcing strategies, doing the transactional or architecture in the deal with the providers, doing contract negotiations, and implementing transition and governance structure. We also have a global strategy practice, which has a full range of management consulting services for private sector, government, and other agencies associated with promoting economic growth in countries around the world. We also have much governance services business, which essentially provides governance as a service for clients that aim to simplify their governance functions and structure to have a more efficient way of doing it. And ultimately, we have Law, which is a sister company of Avasant, which provides legal services associated with outsourcing deals. We are out to a foundation on the company. Our mission is to enable really emerging regions to realize the potential and to promote education for them. We are very proud of our organization and the thing we're doing around the world, and hope you have the opportunity to learn more about that. So with that, I wanna begin to talk about transformation and where all this thing is coming from. I have spent a lot of time with clients over the last 3 years developing, designing, and implementing different elements of the vendor management office and governance structures as we are beginning to see the overall digital entities becoming real for a lot of the organizations. I had conversations with some clients, and very interestingly, the same question came up, which was, all right, my mature vendor management function, which is functional, it is pretty mature, we have the right skills, the right competencies, and we're managing the vendors, properly, if you will. However, a lot of the business and these individuals that I spoke with recently said, well, we are embarking on a business transformation initiative, and we are implementing a lot of digital and mobile and disruptive technologies, and we don't know what we need to do in order to be able to manage business going forward. What do we need to do to change it as we're transforming our business, as we're implementing digital transformation? What do we need to do internally in order to be able to change the way we manage our suppliers today, the way that we are measuring and doing all this performance and collecting? So all those things really trigger the reason for the webinar, because, as I said before, we need to see organizations moving into digital transformation and handling things kind of in time as traditional outsourcing or way of delivering services. But we handle these vendors. How do we mechanisms into our governance structure is not something that is being discussed at least too openly in the marketplace, and that is the big question that we want to answer. Earlier, if you have any questions along this presentation, please feel free to ask, and we're happy to talk about it. I want this presentation to be as dynamic as possible and conversational as possible as well. So to start, we have some polling questions for you that we would like you to answer if possible. Here we want you to pick a statement that best represents the current state of business and digital transformation with your organization. So we have 4 questions. Here's one is presently developing a transformation strategy. 2, we're in the midst of executing our digital transformation strategy. 3, we're beginning executing or then for digital transformation strategy. And 4, we really have no strategy, but developing one next 6 to 2 months. So 45 seconds for your answer this polling question, and so I can share with you the thoughts.
Lower right-hand side of your screen, and so please click on A, B, C, or D, and then hit submit. And it takes us about 30 seconds to have it populate, and we'll show you the results. Okay, and in just a minute, what are you expecting to see, Carlos?
So what we are, the answers are very interesting. What we hear is that most of you beginning the execution of your transformation strategy. So this is just really interesting because this is exactly why we're having this webinar. This is exactly why we want to talk about the effects of the things that we have to see here, right? Changes that we need to make, what are the things that we need to consider. So this is really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
the audience is in the early stages. You're absolutely right.
Correct. Which is, why we're having this conversation, and hopefully we can learn some new characteristics and things that we can implement along the way. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So let's talk about the most common challenges and what is happening and what we picked this to. So 6 different ones that we are the most common challenges that we're seeing in the governance as we think about digital transformation and things that we have to deal with as kind of situation. So the first one is look at antiquated contracting models. That is going to be a surprise to anyone, because as we know, a lot of the traditional contracts that have been implemented in many organizations are focused on service delivery with impact on technology or architecture. These are ongoing services really reflecting the business from those services, not necessarily the business outcomes. The amounts and deliverables are limited to service transition, not build up new capabilities. Then hence, and allows management really rely on the really basic change and release management elements. So again, it's just really just looking at old school type of contracts that are very big and very long. And the focus of vendor management here is across the contracting, pricing, performance, and relationship, which is really what we have seen a lot of the traditional vendor management offices focus on in the last few years. So that's the first one. The next one is human metrics. I think it's been an ongoing problem in the governance perspective in the last few years, but it is becoming more relevant as organizations begin their journey into the digital transformation. And challenges are really associated with getting traditional IT SLAs and milestones. Those SLAs and milestones are beginning to become completely irrelevant, are in some cases not even aligning with the business expectations, are just really related at all with business outcomes. Right? And they really provide historical views and just reporting of what they are. Again, not really a direct correlation with business, and just focus on cost, risk reduction, price performance, et cetera, et cetera. So again, the relevancy of the metrics, it is more challenge. Next one is with desired outcomes. I think that this is the classic one that we're in the marketplace. I think that governance is really based on IT operations. The scope is really not linked to desired business capabilities as defined by functional and non-functional requirements. The deliverables that we are seeing are just not based on new abilities, which I think is the key here, because misalignment in terms of the metrics and business outcomes is just really related to what we're getting, what we're working with the providers in terms of the services that they are delivering, right? We are not looking at just having providers delivering services, being providers. We're looking at now as vendors to become more partners and to be able to be capabilities, which is something that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Capabilities are really basic, based on contract constructs. Again, it is all about delivering services that are clearly stipulated as long contracts. And the tools are just really driven for IT, used by IT. Organizational maturity, I think that at the day, it is all about people. It is all about how do we handle things as individuals. Even if we have good process, even if we have good technology, at the end of the day, is organization, great organization, able to embed these kind of changes as again, or in digital transformation. In many cases, organization in maturity becomes a challenge, and that is actually not that abnormal. And the reason is because it is for the most part IT-centric, and it's really removed from the customer. The management office is pretty much down with IT, in many cases reporting to the IO, in many cases reporting finance. So it is deep down in the way that the organization is residing. It's controlled and policy-based. That is the way that the vendor management offices are really operating today. The hierarchical, responsible with that single point of contact with all of the providers. And they're just good for conventional processes and projects. And that's what it's known, and it struggles to manage what is known, which is one difference that we begin to see part of the new kind of governance that we're going to see in the future, and what is being part of the overall governance transformation. Then the delivery focus and missing technology and architecture. So means is really the old focus of the governance structure, and the reason is because focus has been on managed services following a well-defined responsibilities, or very straightforward. Again, it's just really looking at one statement of work, responsibilities. You're going to be doing this. My organization is going to be doing that. It's just really managing those services. It's just basically doing the orders that we're giving to those providers. What everything is pretty much sequential, world-based delivery. That model is just very linear, if you will. The the technology architecture and security models, which is very interesting because again, it is all services-based, IT-centric. And management of risk is through multi-point cycle. Again, it just touches different dimensions, but it is just not managed, process as we don't have the elements of technology and architecture in place. And actually the lack of control over the rules and intellectual property, and also the direction of the solution. So again, it is just having a more holistic view of where things are going. So having technology and architecture missing from the overall environment with the providers becomes one of the challenges. One is the complex and diverse ecosystem. I think this is one of the areas that we're very familiar with, which is the new players, the new guys that are coming to our environment, and they're different. They think differently. A lot of them very young firms and very specialized that really understand or don't have desire to operate the same rule and the same rules as we know them. So, again, for years we have been traditional technology leaders, enterprise suppliers, marketplace, and you guys are seeing a lot of them are beginning to change or are changing already a lot of their portfolio services and focusing into transformation type projects as opposed to managed services engagements, as the revenues of managed services is going to continue to decline for the next 5 years. There are beginning to see a lot of small, specialized niche micro vendors that really specific technology of services. And complexity, obviously, then is increasing, and overall end-to-end execution of a business abilities or service chain requires multiple vendors to collaborate and share APIs. Again, that is a really critical element, the complexity and the diversity that we're seeing in the marketplace now in the digital ecosystem. So hopefully this common challenges, help us get some additional context into what we talk about in terms of what is driving that governance transformation. Any questions so far?
Yeah, but I will jump in as soon as there are. Folks, remember, open your queue box in the lower right-hand screen. Ask anything you'd like to ask, and then I will jump in and intersect with any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Don. So what's really driving governance transformation? So we have 8 elements we have identified as the key drivers, if you will, drive governance transformation. The first one is the evolving behavior. This is really clear because buying services or bringing service providers as we know anymore. In a lot of cases, yes, you still need to have the commodity services and deliver all of those basic things, but organizations begin to think about moving to the next level themselves and being more competitive in the marketplace. They're beginning to change their behaviors, and they're beginning to change their mechanisms into which they are bringing a lot of the providers. So what that means is they are looking to have results in less time, typically in less than 6 months. They want to have direct access of big technology. It's one of the key changes in terms of the behavior of our clients. Businesses beginning to drive a lot of these conversations. They're beginning to drive a lot of these discussions with vendors in terms of the requirements and the capabilities that you want them to build, not delivering services. So that is not new to anyone. It's just trying to buy everything as a service. The scope, range of technology, architecture, and security models. So again, it's a more complex set of requirements and business needs that it is discussed. It's just not very defined services that I'm going to give this statement of work, you're going to deliver this, I'm going to pay you a fixed price, and then you're going to do the work. It is a lot more complex than that. Our introduction of the zero transformation and gain sharing models. Now, since it's driving a lot of these conversations, they spare their capital investments on something else. One, the vendor to become partners. And what that means is they're expecting now the vendor to be in these relationships and to fund a lot of the transformational initiatives. But what it means is that at the tail end, we're having to change the commercial models into a gain sharing model. Providers can get their money back and have enough incentive to be active, and that they are basically working with their clients to generate that income for the investment and make money. So it is a significant shift, and that relationships are beginning to work. Most organizations sometimes feel shy about this model, and some suppliers are beginning to feel like, well, why do I need to do this? But it is really the way that is beginning to operate, especially as we begin to see these complex ecosystems in the market. Just analytics, analytics and decisions. This is a pretty obvious one, which is basically having the ability to have a lot more data and advanced data analytics and forecasting. So this is just one of the reasons why COVID is just not the same linear tradition doing things, but it's beginning to change because there's a lot more analytics and forecasting involved as part of that function. Third one is a new bit of suppliers. We briefly talked about this a minute ago, which is basically looking at vendors, emerging vendors, very niche, smaller, very specialized, willing to collaborate with a lot of flexibility and initiative. So the difference here is when we're different projects, when we're looking at different digital transformation projects, we're beginning to see that, first of all, there's really not a defined single vendor that can typically deliver those end-to-end transformation initiatives. So it's a key need now to have this type of collaboration and necessity to bring this new breed of small niche suppliers. We're in that in a lot of different verticals that are very specialized. There's a lot of different firms that are popping up with very specialized platforms, like for airports, airlines, retail, that will have to team up with larger vendors, large ones and little ones that we know, to provide a lot of the backbone and support. So that means is the AI is shaping up differently, the revenue model is differently, and the collaboration that has to take place with all of those different vendors it is key here to be successful. So new suppliers, a new way of working. So the zero cost and gain sharing models, where focus value will be on the ongoing optimization of application operations and business process optimization. And here, just the client will need to balance the low initial capital expenditures, control over operations and processes. Talk about that a minute ago. Having vendors or the main vendor assume responsibility, ongoing support, including the sharing and ongoing support efficiencies. So again, the support goes at the beginning from a perspective, and then from the ongoing support. The engine is going to be very unique here, as I mentioned before, as a key element to ensure stability and the reliability of what is delivered to the client. So having, as part of these new models, terms that are acceptable to the vendors. As we begin to change the way we work, obviously we need to change the way that we contract with vendors and the way that we establish the different relationships to make work. So to make sure that as we begin to change the terms and conditions, we ensure that those are acceptable to the vendors and reasonable. Again, we're seeing some situations that are a little unreasonable for the vendors, and that could create a lot of challenges, because they want to do business with you. The vendors will want to say yes in many cases. They feel deep down that they're in a very difficult situation to be profitable. You have problems on the road. This one is focused on business outcomes. Everything is value driven. Everything is all about the business, about building business capabilities, and having metrics based on different type of elements. Speed to resolve, for instance, to correction, speed to respond, and abandonment approach. So those kind of differences that we're beginning to see in the market. In business, design services as well, and how we do things with the business, and vendors will take on responsibility for providing tangible, measurable improvements that will have direct impact on processes, production, and stakeholder satisfaction. So again, it's really customer centric and business driven. And lastly, increased risk and regulatory compliance. I think that this is a very common one that everybody knows about. It's driving is governance information. At the same speed, we begin to see the changes, and it's just, everything is going to be, the ability to accept and resolve ambiguity. Vendors, as we have a new breed of players, they're going to be bringing a bunch of different new risks and availability, security, and compliance. So all of those elements, as they are, also and some challenges for the organization. Any questions so far?
From the new governance challenges in the marketplace today, would you consider those to be applicable to most enterprises or just those that are already embarking on a digital transformation?
Those really apply to everyone, because it is really about how they apply to them. Organizations are probably still operating under the old traditional sourcing models. Some of them are entering the third or fourth generation outsourcing deals, but most of them are beginning to see business transformation to capacity, which is going to include a need of having digital vendors coming into place. So again, everybody's going to have a lot of the same challenge, but the challenges are most pronounced in the ones now beginning to be working on the digital transformation initiatives, regardless of where they are. But this is going to really affect everybody. But the ones that are now more focused on or deeper into the digital transformation will have to do that.
It also applies to all source agreements, not just outsourcing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
All right. And so as we see now the overall the drivers for governance transformation, it's important now to talk about how is it transforming. So this is a very interesting slide that we don't spend too much on it as very in the way that we see it. So we're in the overall transforming from one for traditional outsourcing models where everything was more focused on contract management and performance management and kind of finance management, to the next level, which is really looking at the multi-source outsourcing model, where we begin to see the shift in some of the abilities. Contract management kind of begins to be a little bit less important. Performance management kind of the same level, but everything begins to level up, in kind of in a different way, right? Because traditionally, the government functions really focused heavily towards vendor performance management and contract management. They were really complex, and there were a large number of SLAs which were reviewed and validated to understand the vendor performance. So there were large numbers of change orders, as well as which required a lot of constant changes into the contract. So those things kind of began the way that the governance began to transform. And then we go into the digital-based outsourcing model, and we really see where things really beginning to shift, because the focus is just not really into management. It's really not looking at in large contracts a lot of the clauses. So as we look into the future, the digital vendor ecosystem will have a set of different requirements. They're going to have a set of different elements to manage. So not going to be all about managing the contract. It's going to be more in looking at the relationship. So you see here the contract management element of it goes down significantly. The performance management is going down significantly, and the finance relationship and risk take a higher stake because of all dynamics of relationship. Again, to summarize, governance, the all outsourcing contracts to the few digital-based outsourcing models, it is less into the contract and performance management and more into the relationship value-based governance. So this is a very telling slide because we see the shift in priorities, which we're going to talk about next in terms of what is actually changing as part of this overall transformation. So what's really changing? Change is just, when we look at the different competencies of regional vendor management office, and we let things are beginning to change and transform from the governance perspective, obviously things are changing. A lot of things are changing in the way that we have the cost structures and management, the way that we're dealing with relationship management, finance, performance, and risk management. So what is changing is just really in terms of the overall capability, because the overall capability is changing as client stakeholders and vendors are big to manage the new digital ecosystem. And this, again, the governance needs to retool themselves and change things in terms of people and technology. Again, first of all, we have to understand that for a while, governance organizations will continue to operate as a amount of traditional contracts in place that they have. So we have all these different contracts that we've had for a long time, and as we begin to take into digital transformation projects, then we kind of have to begin operating in a bi-model, structure, right? One, looking at the traditional approaches as we know them today with the metrics and SLAs, and the other really applying experimental approaches, flexible process and based metrics. So that is the difference. So how do we see all of these 5 elements? It is basically kind of a transition of going from the traditional models to digital enterprise. So from the contract structure and management, what are we seeing here? So we're seeing longer, shorter, and simpler contracts, as we earlier zero cost transformation and gain sharing models, linked to business capabilities, focus on partnership and not services, and with a lot more limited operational PCs, right? That is one of the key elements here. So the contracts are a lot shorter. They could be 75, 80 pages with a lot of different scheduled exhibits. Now the contracts are literally 10 pages long, very easy to manage, and focus on the business outcome and business value. From the relationship management perspective, that things become a more relationship driven, to be honest, because it's about working together. It's about collaboration. The drivers change for the organization. So here we're seeing business driven connect outcomes, controller deliverables, as I said before, because we're going to be with a lot smaller projects during the distance, kind of going in different sprints. So we want to control those deliverables. We want to be able to have that related into what is being produced, into what those business are being created for the business, right? And I'm going to require a lot more mature project management and handle the delivery. Again, we're going to have a lot more projects that are going to be a lot more unknowns and with resources coming and going. So it is very different what a lot of organizations doing today, which way is causing a lot of learning in some of the organizations that are very project management driven, that used to manage things kind of the old way, beginning to adjust the PMOs to handle this kind of projects. From a management perspective, just the TCO pricing models. It is kind of the end-to-end financial things and how we handle the dollars. The increased complexity and pay-as-you-use model, data pricing and reporting, pricing traceability to specific tangible deliverables. Again, looking at where the business capability that we're building, and which is cost, and according to the different commercial model, where that the business are going to be on a sharing getting model, et cetera, et cetera. The management, a little bit different to what we used to see in the past. and this is we're going to continue to see some of the traditional AIs and KPIs, but things are beginning to shift into the more business-centric measurements. The reporting on the way that are being shared with the organization is a lot more collaborative. They're beginning to see a lot of shared metrics, single service chain. What that means is when different vendors working together towards the same business functional business capability, where they're both really responsible and accountable for the outcomes. Seeing a lot, simple validation and verification of the delays. It is how dynamic things are and how fast things are going. So the tempo in which relations are being managed are a lot faster. From a management perspective, really, making those adjustments in terms of, policy development to manage technology. Again, as we begin to introduce technology and architecture as part of the overall arrangements with the vendors, it is important now to have those policies in place to manage that, to have that ownership and ability to share those things with the providers. And operational risks and easy entry and easy out of the suppliers are requiring robust risk management capability, because it could create a lot of instability to the capabilities that are being built, because again, there is a lot of different niche suppliers. There's a lot of smaller companies that are bringing in very key technologies, very key different platforms, and the risk of those organizations, those small companies not around anymore, is in that needs to be paid attention to. If there's any questions in terms of what we're seeing as the characteristics for change in the overall governance structure.
Hold on one second. Let me just grab it. One came in and said, what role should procurement play in the transformation of the government function of these complex digitally enabled global business services? For example, sourcing shared services and digital services relationship.
Can you repeat it again, please?
Yeah, what procurement play in the transformation of the governance function of these complex digitally enabled global business services?
So the procurement function will be really working side by side with the internal management offices, and in some cases, actually, we are beginning to see those two organizations working as a unit to be able to handle things at the same speed, with the same parameters, policies, and elements. And this is just to simplify and to be able to manage the complexity of the digital ecosystem. So what we're doing is organizations are beginning to merge a lot of procurement functions with the traditional vendor management offices. We use them as very separate entities with separate responsibilities, but we're going to see them to be joined by the same and mixing the teams function, but all working together to the enterprise, just not looking at IT, for instance, but just looking at things from the enterprise level.
Perfect. And, folks, keep the question coming. We have a lot of content to go through, so I make sure that we get through the content. But what we'll also do is if we don't get to your questions, we will send them on, and Carlos can address them at a later point, too. So our hold question until we get through, because I know you've got some really good content as well as a case that I really want to get to.
Great. So let's go to the next one. So the next slide is just talking about the factors that enable governance transition, and here we're really looking at a few different things, right? As those factors is, the management of the performance to business outcomes. Again, we talked about this, how do we managing those things to be able to serve the business and to be served our customers. This is managing the scope, price as value, as we're beginning to see things more from the project perspective and the smaller sprints. The model structure, it just really means that's of the business that have a lot of certainty objectives are clear and so well understood. So there's a lot of predictability and can be planned. Then we have kind of the general projects that are very new to the organization, that have a lot of knowns, that are very clear and very, very driven, that will have to be supported. The next one will be just managing the partner integration linked to the business units. This is a big endeavor to the governance transformation. I think that in the past we're used to having relationships being managed by IT or by the elements of the vendor management office. Now a lot of these conversations are going to begin to take place directly with the business units. So they're going to have a lot more, I wouldn't say control, but a lot more weight into what they're going to have to say. So it's going to take some adjustments on change management for the organization to kind of let go a little bit and enable the business to be more active participation in those conversations. But it really boils down to to the people, process, and technology, right? We need to not only mature traditional governance capabilities, but we also are going to have to take a look at a broader understanding of the business strategies and goals and business outcomes. You're going to reach your understanding of the relationship between commercial terms, conditions, and expected business outcomes. They're going to have to have, businesses are going to have greater understanding of governance stakeholders and desired user experiences. Again, going back to the business units, the burdens that are going to be basically taking on the business transformation projects. From typical operation tasks to more strategic tasks that will demand a lot of different skills, that demand a lot of different capabilities that will have to from individuals in order to be able to handle the new way of doing governance. From this perspective, I think that the processes that we have seen in the traditional vendor management offices are very, very straightforward. They have been around a long time. They want to require greater sophistication and be more mindful about operationalizing those sourcing contracts. Again, looking at orchestration, looking at higher volumes, looking at less approvals and more decision making, and being able to be a lot more flexible, so we can have kind of a plug and play with different vendors coming and going as part of the service chains of what they're being delivered. And in terms of technology, automated workflows and analytics, service integration, dashboard. I mean, I think that the technologies are there. There is a lot of different technologies that are coming up from side to be able to optimize and expedite reporting. And the providers, as they are beginning to digital projects for their clients, they are also implementing different technologies. The key thing here is to be able to integrate those technologies and make good use of them instead of things more complicated. Go to the next one to talk about the options that we're seeing now in the marketplace as a viable option to accelerate the journey of governance transformation, which is really looking at governance as a service. I think what's interesting is organizations have a lot of different and will continue to make changes to adjust to the digital transformation efforts and to be able to adjust the organization to make it happen. But in a few years, the governance as a service has begun to be kind of more of a better option, if you will, not as it really helps organizations to get things better, to be able to adapt to the new ways and the new things going at a faster speed. If you look at this slide, things from the vendor to the clients, looking at really dynamic and rapid use of solutions, flexible, being experimental, and handling things in a way that really brings value to the business. So it's really, really shifting the traditional way of doing governance into a more agile way of managing those different relationships. Here, we see a comprehensive set of best practices governance services here in terms of what the organizations can do for you, right? The focus here is the actual service in the service and not necessarily on the technology, because the technology is really there, and what changes here are the process and the skills that are brought to the table to get those things done. So organizations basically have the ability to win these new capabilities, to implement and adjust quicker to things and things that are happening as part of the implementation of this digital transformation initiative. Then basically increase your speed of market. You don't have to wait and basically develop, skills and change all the processes and implement new technologies. You can have just an organization to bring all of those things to you, and for the most part, it's at significantly lesser price than what companies could themselves. Again, but we're continuing to see this as a hard sell for a lot of organizations because they are afraid to just basically to have to manage somebody who's going to manage their digital ecosystem. Next slide to talk about the journey, and this is just really interesting here as we look at the journey of core information. What we really need to do to be able to get there, and it's important. It's not that different than the traditional roadmap that we see out there. But first, we just have to understand that for all, again, governance organizations will continue to operate as is to the amount of traditional contracts in place. But just to be able to apply these changes, as organizations are going to have to change the skills required for effective management and educate, change a lot of the processes, and focus on what is changing. So here out of the journey, we different elements. The first thing is just to update policy and prepare for change. I think the overall change management element is going to be critical. As we talked about earlier, the policies and basic elements of the governance structure will have to be adjusted so they can begin to function effectively during, for that digital ecosystem. They need to redefine the processes and update those capabilities. I think that what we're is really, design processes to handle all commercial models, to link business processes with vendor capabilities and outcomes. The processes enable agility and decision making and simple dashboards. Again, just really redefining those processes and simplifying those processes to be able to handle these changes. Just to implement technologies, thing that we talked about earlier, you can implement those different technologies yourself, and there are a lot of options out there that will basically, that capability, but it take a while to implement because there's a lot of different integration that will have to take place with internal systems and with the suppliers. But at the end of the day, I think that adjusting those technologies is going to be very important. Everything a lot more automated, especially as things are going to be more based on unknowns, right? So that kind of automation is going to be critical to happen. It's going to be to train the team. I think that's, as we talked about before, everything is about behavior. Everything is about people. So to make this happen, in order to take this journey to a proper coordination, we're going to have to train our resources. We're going to have to really help them change the way they're thinking, the way that they interact with the providers, the way that they really work with the business. Working is going to be the biggest difference. We have to train these resources and bring these abilities and competencies that will be more business-oriented, more strategic-driven way, so they can really handle and manage and facilitate those conversations with the vendors. And then altogether, we just really enable the structure for the new ecosystem. Again, just really make it all happen together, kind of orchestrate all the different elements. So when organizations go through that journey, basically manage the speed, market, manage the critical success factors and the risks associated with it. So again, it is a way of doing it, which is doing it themselves as going as a journey, or leverage a managed governance services to wrap all the curve of other management. Any questions? And I'm trying to move as quick as possible so we can cover all the other topics.
6 minutes, so why don't you keep going and I'll hold the question.
All right. Yeah, we have just one more slide, which is basically we all end up, on this particular result, which is business value-driven governance. Talked about is associated with being able to support the digital transformation, being able to support a large amount of different digital suppliers and ecosystem. So what that's going to give us, what we're going to get out of having that more governance organization is really enable three different things that are going to be key to measure. One, innovation, which is really application advantage for fast transitions. Again, really how things are applied. And everything is now business driven. It's how that creates competitive advantage for the customer. We want the service providers, we want the vendors to begin to build business capability, not just to deliver services, not to be order takers. So as part, we want to apply that innovation and to generate some competitive advantage. In terms of efficiency, in cycle times, cost optimization, business, predictive, productive, and leveraging trends. Again, it is looking at the governance structure to work with vendors to leverage all these trends. We have to work with and we have to have them come to us and help doing ideation, to help doing solutioning, and to be part of the development of this business capability. So that generates this kind of efficiencies that us as part of the governance team will really take advantage of. And the performance. We're see increased revenue, ultimate return investment, and our customer experience. Then, as we need to shift our focus into the business as opposed to IT as our main customers, we'll begin to be more part of the growth of the organization, the customer experience. So again, key here is the shifting of being more IT-driven type of organization to transforming the organization to be a more business value-driven function. So that is really the difference, and I hope that with this information, you get a better idea on some of the elements that we need to think about to be able to really transform the governance function to support this ecosystem of our in a digital enterprise. Questions, and then I'm gonna go through the polling questions before we close.
If you have a poll, why don't we go ahead and open the poll, and we can push it out right now. And let me ask you a couple of questions, okay?
Go ahead.
Okay. How significant are regulatory issues or constraints in certain industries, such as banking and financial services with OTC and FFDIC and healthcare with HIPAA, affecting the need to transform?
Well, it is. I mean, those are key elements, and those elements that we're seeing being significant drivers into the overall change, and it is, and the reason is because they're going to require to have a lot of different policies to manage these vendors, such as policy, things of that nature. Data production and operations risk will significantly grow. So those different bodies are beginning to be more strict in terms of how you need to be dealing with all of those elements. The regulatory compliance and audits beginning to be more common than not. An organization will have to make sure that they're in compliance with those bodies. And again, risk management and compliance begins to be a critical element. So it is really basically kind of the measure of change and that change is taking place.
Well, the last polling question we have time for, the results are here now, evenly split between B, C, and D, so it's interesting. And I have Destiny grab control and push the deck out to you. So this information is on the slide in front of you. So if you head on the gray file transfer box in the middle of your screen, if you click on it, in just a second it populates, you can load and or share the file immediately, and this way you can get it behind your firewall. I'll also send it out to you, an electronic link tomorrow as well. I just want to thank you, Carlos. This is a fabulous presentation and great content. I wish we had more time for a conversation. But hey, Carlos is going to be at the upcoming SIG Summit in Carlsbad, along with some other Avasant folks. So please reach out to him. Make sure you get your questions answered. Reach out to Carlos directly. He's keen to make sure that we keep the conversation going. And Carlos, thank you so much, and thank you, Avasant. You guys did a great job, like usual. You always impress me. And with that, I sign off on today's webinar. And hopefully everybody on today's webinar in Carlsbad next week. Thank you, Carlos. Have a good day.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Dan. Okay, I appreciate it.